I can't believe you just threatened. You just threatened as a suggestion that we should do adult charades.
It's a game night. It's a fun thing to do.
What is adult charades? Like, can you tell what time it is while putting your wiener over the wrist, or what?
You saw it on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills.
And look at how that went. It turned into, every time they do a game night on that show, it turns into a fight.
Well, so will ours probably, but it is what it is at this point.
We can't have another Saturday night end in drunken tears.
But no, like charades, adult charades. Like, you have to get the person to say, like, missionary position or something. Like, it's not that bad. It's just a few sexual terms or curse words, like taking a shit or something. Like, have to mime out that. That's what adult charades is to me. I don't know.
I love the concept that from the greater part of the last century up until maybe the mid-2000s, it was a thing to have game nights at someone's house with alcohol, or people go out and have dinner and come back with their friends from a bar, like early. Like, you don't stay out all night. That was not the vibe. Like, you go out and you come to someone's very large, comfortable home, and there's like a rumpus room or a game room or a sunken conversation.
Now that we're getting old, that's what we do. Like, we don't go out to the club anymore. We drink at home, have a few play a few games, and be in bed by 11.
But that's the thing. Like 10 o'clock, you fire up the fondue pots, and you pour a couple cups of hot broth with vodka, and you get people to put on funny hats, and you take compromising pictures of them, and then you send them on their way.
I didn't say it was the 70s.
Why not? I just want to know. Okay,
we could play the match game.
Oh God, no one has ever given me an accurate description of what a rumpus room is. And I don't know what that word is supposed to mean, but I've heard that term way too many times.
Okay. You brought this on yourself.
You know you can't say "Hey Siri" anymore. It's changed it to just Siri. They took the "Hey" out. Siri is no longer humanized. Siri is now being recognized as just a form. AI is taking over everything.
But don't you have to wait for like an update? Like, it didn't update by itself.
When the new software comes out, yeah.
Merriam-Webster defines rumpus room as a room usually in the basement of a home that is used for games, parties, or recreation.
It just sounds so wrong.
Examples. Let's find a good one. Okay, here. Los Angeles Times in 2019, someone wrote, during those decades, the weeping fig, often called a ficus plant, experienced an initial wave of popularity that landed it in the rumpus rooms and dentist office around the country. And that's a very good use of the word rumpus room, because you would find a ficus tree in a rumpus room.
Okay, I'm doing a Zillow search now.
Now we're doing live searches on air.
Properties for sale, and I'm looking up
with rumpus rooms.
With just because you can search by keyword, like you can put fireplace. It says here you can put horses. I'm putting rumpus in keywords. There is one property. Oh no, 3, and I'm looking in Los Angeles, just the greater Los Angeles area. So there's one in a unit on Sherman Way in the Valley that says, addition to the 3 bedrooms, the rumpus room next to the garage could be used as a 4th bedroom or office as well. Okay, it's in an apartment complex and it has a rumpus room.
Okay, well then that's bullshit, because, as the definition says, usually in a basement.
Which it does not really exist here.
But which is also odd, because the term rumpus room sounds like it would be a southern euphemism, correct? Am I wrong in my asking?
Midwestern / southern,
Okay. Well, like, to me, it seems like a, something someone from Georgia would say.
Place where they put fruit and dairy together. Those like weird jellos and shit that people make? Like they can't consume fruit without some form of dairy. Places where they do that, I feel like there's a rumpus room.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
no, I know.
You know exactly what I mean.
But my point being that much of the South, because it is at sea level, they don't have basements. You don't have basements in Louisiana.
No,
you can't have a basement in New Orleans because it's
your basement becomes the swimming pool.
Right. So if you're having rumpus rooms that are by definition in the basement,
So maybe not necessarily a Southern thing. It is a Midwest thing.
maybe.
Well, okay.
Are they using tornado shelters as rumpus rooms?
I don't know what happens in a rumpus room. I'm so scared.
Why did you bring this up? We have other things to talk about.
They're not important. This is okay for out of town visit. This is one listing in Hermosa Beach, where I don't think they can go very deep to do a rumpus. For out of town visitors, there is a bottom floor bedroom and bath, as well as an attached rumpus room with a pool table included for sale. And so one's in an apartment, one's in this house that's in Inglewood that does not look large enough to have a rumpus. And then another one is on the beach. None of which are the style of house I would expect. Like, I would expect like a large, flat, one-story house on a sloping hillside so that the lower level has a sliding door but also has rumpus. Now I'm stretching out into the suburbs, and let's see. Okay. Riverside, no. Carlsbad, no. There is nothing in Palm Springs. No rumpus happens there. I mean, other things happen there, but not rumpus.
Well, I also have to... specify. Well, interesting. First known use was in 1930.
Okay, so there's 72,000 listings in California. How many of them have rumpus? 11 listings in the entire state of California have rumpus as a description.
It's funny that it was first used in the year 1930, but this gets to a bigger problem, and this is for all of you listening, especially you sitting across the table from me.
Who?
You.
Who?
Who?
You.
This has come up on one of the seasons of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, where the dictionary definition of a word is not always representative of how that word is used.
Of the parlance.
Right. So words as they are used, and I am a linguist, I know this stuff. Words as they are used have connotation, have, that's the best word to use. Connotation, have underlying leanings or meanings pinned to them. So as they've been used in the past, they've become a certain type of connotation, either positive, negative, neutral.
Right.
You know what I'm talking about. So, for example, the words eager and anxious, right? Anxious has a negative connotation. Eager has a positive connotation. They mean roughly the same thing. But one means I don't want this to happen, and one means I want this to happen.
But a lot of mid-century literature...
But people use it incorrectly.
Right.
They're starting to use it incorrectly now, and yes, back...
Like 50s literature will say, she was anxious. And you're looking for context clues to connotate with your common definition of anxiety.
Connote.
Connolly, he was in the limo with JFK. He shot the gun. But anyway, connote, whatever. The term was used as she was anxious she was anxious to take on the new job. Well, it's basically she was eager to take on the new job. She was looking forward to it. She was not dreading it.
Right.
And anxiety has now become synonymous with dread.
So through use and through our experiences, and as we use in linguistic circles, what we call frames, our framing of certain words, they take on certain meanings and connotations that the dictionary definition does not always, and quite frankly, hardly ever holds.
Right.
Another great example, I actually wrote a paper in my in my graduate career on the word bitch.
Oh.
Because everyone knows the first definition of the word bitch in any dictionary is going to be a female dog. But we all know that is not how it's used, right? That is not how it's mostly used in everyday language. And so if you go and look at databases of actual use of the word bitch, you find very few uses of the word meaning a female dog.
But in the more English, England, the land, usage of bitch, you will find more dog connotations than you do in the American usage,
probably.
American English. Because there was a whole running gag on multiple shows I've watched. I remember Keeping Up Appearances is the one that comes to mind, where there was a whole thing about this woman saying, I have to go get my bitch. And they're like, And then it was actually a dog. It was a hunting dog. You know, this bitch keeps wandering out of the house. It becomes like this like constant, you know, like my pussy on Are You Being Served? Mrs. Slocum.
Well,
for our older listeners.
But my point being, you know, in Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, it was the word violate. So someone said, well, the definition of violate is such and such. But as we all know, if you say someone violated me, that usually has a very
sexual assault connotation.
A slightly sexual, but very negative and very severe connotation.
It's like that E. Jean Carroll when she was on Anderson Cooper's show. She was like, you know, rape is sexy. And then Anderson Cooper looks, he's like, okay, we're going to go to commercial. And she's like, you're really easy to talk to. And her eyes start darting back and forth. But I understood what she was saying in the sense of she was saying that if she said the word rape has a sexual connotation that some people interpret you know, has a sexual connotation that can be interpreted as implying a compromising situation you both put yourselves into. If she had said all of that, but the way it came out, and who knows, maybe the way she does call her husband some fucked up names, so maybe she was rape is sexy, and it's just like, oh God, you know. Who did E. Jean Carroll's hair extensions? I want to know who paid for the lawsuit and who paid for the hair extensions.
Before
No, because we're going to go way into Trump's lawsuits now. We're diving so far in the deep end.
Well, can I just bring up one last thing to tie it in a bow?
No.
Because the best use of the word
rumpus ring,
bitch without actually using the word was from the movie The Women, where Joan Crawford very slyly says, you know, there's a word for women like you, but it's not used in polite company outside of a kennel. So, very good movie. Go watch it. But
really
the point is, and I think we talked about this on a
it is a good movie.
episode.
It doesn't. I mean, look, no one's getting the royalties for that movie now, so I guess we can talk. Like, it's not, you know, maybe Christina is getting the royalties for that. I don't know.
But anyway, yes, your drag queen president and his
drag queen president.
many indictments. Yes,
I am here for it. I know that when we spoke after the first indictment in New York regarding the Stormy Daniels case and basically, what was it, like tax filings for it or how it was reported as business income.
Right.
Like, there was some
bullshit.
Basically procedural bullshit. And they didn't hold a lot of charges, but everyone got to do the fun perp walk thing with Trump, and he gets to show up and say, you know, I'm innocent, and everyone moves it along. Great. The Mueller, she wrote people got to, you know, drink 2 bottles of domestic wine and fall asleep. Next legal situation in New York was the E. Jean Carroll case, where they found that there was a probable, I believe there was some kind of probable cause that placed Trump in the room with her at the time, but not that anything happened, even though I think we've talked about previously. Right. That was bullshit. You can't sexually assault somebody in a Bergdorf's fitting room, especially there's not many men that are in the women's lingerie section. It is a very private floor in the women's side of the store, because there's one on the, you know, one side of Fifth Avenue and one on the other. There's a men's store for exclusively men's clothes on the other side. Women, you know, there. And by the way, a wildly recognizable figure who owns the hotel next door, where the plaza is, walking through there and giving someone a finger bang in a dressing room, is not going to go unnoticed by anybody. So that seemed very specious at best.
And if it had happened and, you know, people turned a blind eye to it, by the time this became a court case, someone would have come out and said, "Oh yeah, I was there and I saw it."
I was the because they also said that they, I guess, interacted with a couple of the employees there. No employee can place them there. No one working there, like, this is probably before security cameras, but the idea that, you know, that thing happened and then there was continued attempts for her to reach out to him and everything like this, and a lot of the things about the story seemed really fucked up. Okay, so the 2 New York cases are Bullshit and Bullshit Jr. Moving along. Now we have the case that has only come to light this past year, if you can believe it. The Stormy Daniels thing was a long time thing. E. Jean Carroll's been ranting and raving. She had a book to sell up and down. Now we're at something that came to light this year. So to give a little background, from what I understand, the Justice Department reached out to Trump and said, the National Archives reached out to Trump and said, hey, we have all your presidential papers, but we understand you have some copies of them and you can't have them. And his attorneys basically said, look, they're his personal papers. They were essentially declassified by, when you are president, you can declassify documents just by saying so. That's kind of the deal. It doesn't apply to Hillary or other people who are not president, but when you're president, by virtue of you having the document, it is considered declassified to whoever you want to share it with. If you're sitting in the White House and a reporter walks in and sees a document on your desk, the reporter is not in violation of whatever top secret clearance things or anything like that, because the president is there and is consenting to allow you to view whatever the item is. That is probably going to be the argument he makes, but that's kind of the deal. And it's designed that way for a few reasons, but the point being, there should be no documents that are beyond view of the elected president, from what I understand. So,
sorry, keep going. You're bringing up lots of things.
Because there's a lot of stuff. Because it's like
lots of things that I'd like to say.
Certain things like the National, Geospatial Agency keeps things from the president. That's fucked up. But okay. But the president basically has top level clearance automatically as virtue of their jobs.
Right.
When they leave, there is the idea that they can take their personal items with them. What counts as a personal item?
Okay, so you open the can of worms, so now I'm going to dive into them.
Dive in.
We always say that once a president, always a president, right? So you always address someone as president whatever.
Right.
I don't know how formal that is, but for the purpose of either declassifying or holding on to documentation when you've left office, when do you... I don't think it is specifically spelled out in any statute or in the Constitution when you actually cease to be president. Because you are called President whoever until you die.
Right.
Well, no, even after you're dead, they refer to you as President whoever.
He's not Speaker of the House Taft. He will always be President Taft.
Right.
Whether he became that before or after, he's not going to be Supreme Justice Taft. He's President Taft. That's the role we will always remember him as.
So the point being, if you are holding documents in a SCIF, it's an acronym that
it's a type
I've heard.
Bitch?
No, it's an acronym I've heard used many times. They used it in the indictment that we read. Secure. Basically, it's saying, as president, you are allowed to name something a SCIF and hold, as long as it's secure and determined secure by the government. You can hold things there.
Okay.
So you can hold things behind like lock and key.
Then there's so many other levels there because, for example, if you're a president and the common thing that's happened in the past many decades has been a president has a library and a foundation to support the library. Some of the documents and articles that are then transferred over to the library or the foundation could easily be considered top secret, secret, above secret, like whatever the classification monikers are, and not necessarily in a SCIF. Because if you were president whatever and you want to hand over a letter from a Russian leader saying, thank you for your hospitality on my last visit, that is classified as top secret. regardless, because it is two large nuclear powers. Anytime you have anything regarding a nuclear power, it's automatically top secret. Right. If you talk to the Israeli ambassador, it's top secret. If you talk to the prime minister of the UK, it's top secret. You can be talking about cottage cheese, but it's top secret because these are nuclear powers. I think that that's what the definition is now. So if you hand over a letter saying thanks for your visit, the dinner was lovely, that's considered top secret. We've overclassified everything.
Yes, absolutely. But as I've heard in discussions with people who are in the know, I will not name them, legal people, they discussed it saying that this is a gray area because we don't know, again, when someone stops being president. We know when they stop holding the office, but we don't know when they stop becoming president. When do they stop holding that clearance?
Because presidents can have their clearance continue after and communicate with past presidents.
Which is important, by the way. So,
and has happened multiple times in the past. Previous presidents have communicated, like Nixon talking to Clinton, like he didn't lose the clearance.
So part of the indictment talks about him showing a document that he should not have to someone else, a writer of some sort.
Right.
So, and that was after he left office. So could he then declassify that, show that to this writer, and be in, accordance with the law?
Right.
And all of this kind of goes away.
Right.
On the other hand, I think of the paperwork that Joe Biden had in his car.
Next to his car. It was in a garage with just like a regular garage. It was not like, that's been a big thing, is it's behind a thin door. You and I could break in there with our limited skills.
So, but the main point here being, those were papers that were confidential when he was vice president and not president.
Correct.
And as far as we know, Obama never declassified those items in his garage.
Correct.
So is he even more liable, is he even more guilty than Trump is in this kind of scenario that we're painting here?
And also documents from Joint Chiefs of Staff and things like that when Hillary Clinton was part of Obama's cabinet. And perhaps even before. No one wants to talk about the fact that she probably had documents from the 90s that were never declassified officially, but she kept. But this idea of like a server in her home, emails that were kept, documents that were kept. Mike Pence, as well, was found to have documents in his possession that were then considered retroactively top secret. And again, a couple scare words happened in this indictment, because I read through kind of the major beats of it, but some pages. One of them said nuclear. And I hope I addressed that earlier. It's regarding, nuclear weapon, everything like that. Wait a second. Whoa. A document regarding nuclear weapons and their location, which is mostly known now, it's not a secret, unless they're saying that where Israel's nuclear weapons are, which we basically know they have, but saying it's between two nuclear powers, or the Five Eyes, which are like the Commonwealth plus the United States. Okay. With nuclear weapons, you could say, again, a conversation between the president and the UK prime minister is discussing nuclear weapons and materials and everything like this. It could not be, but it's between two nuclear powers, so that can be used to scare up the idea of, nuclear, and it's scary. It's not like a map that someone crudely drew on like at a restaurant table where they give you the crayons saying, nukes, they're here, here, and here. Okay, so big deal, number one. Number two, they will scare you with part of the conversation that Trump said was alluding to the fact that these documents were classified. And saying something in regards to, I could declassify them, I didn't declassify them, I didn't declassify, whatever the situation is, it doesn't matter. By virtue of him holding them and the National Archives not requesting them the day of the inauguration or the day after, January 21st, where are these documents? January 22nd, where are these documents? There's no record of the second that those moving trucks... Why would you let those documents get in the moving trucks and leave the White House if you were concerned that they were so sensitive? That's the part of that I don't understand.
Right, you would assume that someone is checking everything that's leaving that building.
Right, because if you or I go to the White House...
Especially after someone has ended their term.
On a bad note... Like, if you or I left the White House, we couldn't just shove everything, everything we wanted and then leave. Like
Some of the China.
some of the China. But if you or I are walking out of the White House after a tour, we have given them all rights to search us, to seize us, to do whatever the fuck they want. They can take my Costco card and throw me out on my back because it's a government building. It's very secure. But if you're a resident there for a certain number of years, you would think, again, that anything left would be, which is given people a more conspiratorial idea that have said, well, they shoved a couple boxes of documents he shouldn't have had in there to make it look bad that they would later go on and find among his personal possessions. But that's neither here nor there. The point being, if this was information that was so important, why would you, in a role of granting access, give this person that stuff that they would just take home with them? And 3, these are multiple boxes of documents. If the president can universally declassify anything, what's the problem? It's not like he got fired as a CEO of a multinational company and he took company secrets home with him that he was not allowed to have once he ended his job. There's not an NDA he signs. There's nothing like this, which is why I really don't understand what the case that they're trying to make here is.
Well, I want to be very clear also that if you read the 49-page indictment, it is very suggestive that a lot of bad things were done. It is very suggestive and it leads you to believe that Trump has done some very, very heinous things. However, you have to realize that this is being crafted by people who want him to be painted in that light.
Right.
We have not heard yet a response from Trump's legal team or anything like that. So this is a very crafted, very carefully crafted document to make him look as guilty as possible.
To paint it out to people being like, he didn't follow procedure. And this is another thing that I think is interesting. The conspiracy on that side, okay, what's the worst that could happen? He has documents at Mar-a-Lago and someone just wanders in to take a shit and sees the documents just sitting there and steals them, in a very secure property that you've been to. You saw how secure it was.
Yes. Which I wanted to bring up later. But
we'll get to that. But the point is, the conspiracy left has basically said, well, I bet the Saudis were paying him billions of dollars for access to those documents about what? What do you think that these countries don't know by now? They all operate spy networks. They all have hackers online. They all have cameras in places. They all have people in their pocket. There's no information that they don't know that Trump only had access to that I can conceive of that would be valuable to them. So I don't know what kind of document trading they think was going on here, because there's nothing that they don't know, especially between two countries that already share so much intelligence with each other. It's not like we have an adversarial power that he could be giving documents to, that it's like, he gave Russia where our nukes are. Russia knows where our nuclear weapons are. They spend billions of dollars to figure that out. So that's the other part that's just so fascinating to me, of acting like we have any secrets anymore, or any country has any secrets anymore with each other. It doesn't happen.
Well, okay, so because you brought it up, yes, I've been to Mar-a-Lago. I understand how...
Did you take any documents?
Shh.
Damn it. You told me those are recipes. And your yoga classes and emails to friends about wedding planning.
Whose wedding?
I don't know. Chelsea.
No. Yes, I've been to Mar-a-Lago. It is a very, very secure place.
Right.
To the point where... and I think we all know it's secure because he was a former president and he's on the grounds.
Right.
But there are people, there is someone every few yards. We're talking the amount of money that it takes to staff this place.
That's a millions of dollars a year enterprise.
Because at one point we were leaving the event and I was with 2 other people. And we got lost because it's a very large place, and there's, hallways and stuff that pathways that lead places.
Right.
So we were looking for the Uber where you get picked up by Ubers because it's like in the back where no one sees the Ubers.
Right. No one wants to see a Nissan Sentra pull up to Mar-a-Lago. I'm sorry.
So
you're practically in Miami by that point.
We were looking for like the server's exit or whatever, and we kept walking and walking, and we walked past this little pathway, and we're like, oh, this looks like it leads out. We turned one direction, and it walked. It led us like 10 feet to this building that was like a small ballroom, a very small, secure, intimate ballroom. And there were two people in that ballroom, like empty, like there was no event, there was nothing going on. Two people just standing there like, do you need help? And we're like, oh, we're just looking for the exit. Go left. Like very, very, polite, but
firm
and professional.
But don't fuck with me.
Right. And so we were like, thank you, bye, and we walked out the other way. So every 5 to 10 feet, you're going to see one of these people in the suit with the little, earpieces and shit,
right,
where they're talking to someone or hearing something constantly. It's a little scary, but the point is, no one's going to get something that they shouldn't have.
Right. Like, you can't steal a paperweight there, even if you tried.
No.
And I think that's another thing, because now you're trying to indict the goodness of the Secret Service. Because the whole point of the Secret Service is to protect individuals, protect, nuclear codes, documentate, all these other things. Now you're indicting their good name by saying that they're not capable of monitoring what goes on or where he... Like, Secret Service has been monitoring him every minute since he left the White House. It's starting in the campaign in 2016.
Right.
So this is another thing. Okay. Secret Service has known basically what Trump has been doing, if not even who he's been talking to on the phone, since, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. 8 years. And not once has someone raised a red flag saying, he's talking to the, some person he's not supposed to talk to. He's saying something he's not supposed to do. Like, for the past 8 years, you've basically been monitoring him like he's been in a cage. Whatever property he goes to, there's somebody there. Whatever plane he's on, there's somebody there. Whatever vehicle he's in, there's somebody there. Whatever place he's staying at overnight, there's somebody there. And you're telling me that no one observed anything, and yet you're still trying to pull some kind of indictment? That's the other part that I think is fascinating and strange.
So I want to bring up one other thing that's kind of on the legal aspects of this. And then I'd like to conclude with something that, a discussion that you're not going to like, but I would like to say it anyway. So there are 37 counts, is that correct? Mm-hmm. So the first 31 counts are literally like document by document. Excuse me.
This document.
Right. This document he took, blah, blah. This document he kept. This document he kept. Like,
he took nude pictures of Hillary.
One by one. So there's 31 of those.
Great.
So, okay, whoop-de-doo. They're all basically the same count.
That's procedural.
But the rest of the counts I have problems with because they're very repetitious, and I'm thinking legally, can you really hold him accountable for these things simultaneously? So count 32, conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Ugh.
Conspiracy to obstruct justice. Not obstruction of justice, but conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Does that mean obstructing justice planning with one other person? I think that's what conspiracy means.
Right, yes. So if you look at the indictment, the other person named is his...
valet.
Yeah.
Former Marines.
I forgot.
I forgot the gentleman's name.
Naruto, something
Walnut
like that.
something.
Oh, Nauta.
Yes.
Nauta. Nauta.
Yes.
Count 33, withholding a document or record. Count 34, corruptly concealing a document or record.
What is that?
So 32 is conspiracy, corruption, blah, blah, blah. Count 33, withholding something. Count 34, corruptly concealing something. Mm-hmm. How are these not the same thing? I have a problem with this.
But I think I get what the point is.
Count 35, concealing a document in a federal investigation. Literally 34, corruptly concealing a document or record. 35, concealing a document in a federal investigation. How are those two different counts?
Right.
36. Scheme to conceal. How is that different from conspiracy to conceal?
He was conspiracying and scheming.
37. Last one. False statements and represent. Okay, that's different. Like lying.
But with any of these, here's the problem. I have a sense what they're trying to do. Because everyone keeps saying, "Oh, Jack Smith, this prosecutor, that bug-eyed balding man." They keep saying, like, "Oh, he's good. He's good. He's in his weird European court outfit." Okay, here's what I think that he was shaking at the press conference. No one is above the law. It's like, oh, great, thanks. That gives me confidence. Let's say that every document charge gets thrown out because he said, "Look, I was president. I declassified them." Ba-boom. The backup is they would try to nail him on conspiracy charges or obstruction of justice charges. This is the same nonsense they tried to pin against Nixon in a different context, but that's the sort of thing of like, it's an anything charge. It could be anything.
Right.
If you thought about shoplifting, it's a conspiracy to shoplift and defraud an innkeeper or whatever nonsense they want to pull out. So that's a big thing. That's the part that, even if he gets let off by a jury on everything, that they could still potentially try to nail him on, which is kind of insane that he could win the presidency and then they could put him in a position where he would have to report for sentencing. Like, then what happens?
Well, no, they couldn't.
Because he's president...
Yes, once you're president, you're
But that's the thing.
Untouchable.
They're doing speedy trial things and stuff like that, but I don't think that they have enough time. Which is why I think they're trying to rush things as quickly as possible, because once a campaign takes off, I'm sorry, nothing sticks. And even some judges would be like, you're not going to, like this, I don't want this in my courtroom. I don't want to deal with this. Like, that's nonsense.
So, my point in bringing all of that up is tying this back to, I never thought this would come back, tying this back to the beginning of the podcast where we talked about,
there were documents in Trump's rumpus.
No, talking about linguistics and language. Obviously, I know, legalese and legally speaking, maybe conspiracy and scheme are two different, legal classifications. Fine. However, they're only using these multiple counts to jack up the number of counts. Like, they're just trying to make it look more bad than it is, or you know what I'm saying? Like, they're just trying to make it look worse, look
scarier.
Yeah.
37 counts, even though it's basically two things. You're saying, one, he kept documents; two, he kept documents and told us he was going to return them and didn't. It's basically two counts if you really want to push it.
Right.
But they want to make it sound like he was like, because the average person's conception of this would be like,
when they hear 37,
like, he's guilty.
He committed 37 different crimes.
Right.
Well, not really.
But that's even the thing where it's like, okay, with a DUI, one thing can be 5 different quote crimes. One could be speeding, driving recklessly. They call it wet and reckless. Blood alcohol content above.
What'd you call
wet
me?
And reckless.
What'd you call me?
Trump was wet and reckless in Miami Beach. No, there's wet and reckless. There's blood alcohol content above a certain amount. Driving with the blood alcohol content. Those are 2 separate charges. And then it gets to a point where you're like, a DUI, which you think is 1 charge, could be 5 to 7 charges.
DUI, DWI,
I heard about someone doing it on a scooter. That happened.
Driving under the influence, driving while intoxicated, yes.
Because driving while intoxicated can be, I had a cup of coffee and it affected me a certain way, and I didn't have a blood alcohol content of having alcohol in my system, but I was intoxicated by a different substance, and it affected me.
Oh, I was under the impression that it was different. Okay.
No, you can get a quote drunk driving charge on any substance known to man if they hate you enough. You can say I ate a heavy dinner and they're like, aha, intoxicated. But anyway, getting back to the Trump thing.
Yes, so last thing that I wanted to say, and don't throw things at me, please.
All right, well.
Because I know, you love him, you will go to bat for him, you will fight for him to the death. But I have to say one thing.
Wouldn't it be easier?
No. You don't know what I'm going to say. Don't put words in my mouth. If you know if you know that you have been through the ringer, if you know that you've gone through multiple witch hunts, as you have called them, if you know that they are trying to get every single thing, any single thing that can stick to you and nail you to the cross and, destroy any hopes and chances you have for a further career, if you know that everyone and their brother is out to get you, why would you ever make stupid mistakes like he has? Why would he ever put himself in the position of being in this scenario?
But that's kind of the
You need to be smarter than that.
well, but that's okay. This is a very good point, and I'm not mad that you raised that because I think that there's a counterfactual there too. Why would you do things knowingly that would get you in legal trouble? I don't think that, with this Stormy Daniels thing, I don't think that there was any intent to do things inappropriately. I don't think that when he filled in his financial disclosures in New York, there was any attempt to do anything inappropriately. I don't think in this situation with classified documents there was an attempt to do anything inappropriately. I don't think in the Georgia case, which is another sort of the third dimension of this, of saying, telling them like that he's like, well, where are the votes? You told me that these votes were there. Where are the saying where are the votes is not trying to do something illegal. So that's the thing. It's like in any of these, I don't see an attempt to break the law. I see someone being persuasive in a conversation. I see someone saying, look, because even in the indictment, he said, look, you saw that Hillary's lawyer did these things, and it was fine. I don't understand why I get a different standard applied to me.
No, this is exactly the point that I'm trying to make, though. It is the definition and the poster child of unfair. But we know, as conservative people, as people who are against the media and all of this, if you are working in this capacity, if you are working in journalism, political office, any of that stuff, and you are right-leaning or conservative or libertarian or something that's not, the powers that be, you have to do everything perfectly. You have to live your life crossing every T, dotting every I, and everything must be above board, perfect, documented, all of that. Because at the slightest convenience to them, if they need to take you down, they will find any excuse to do so.
Which is correct. And so I give you... I give you a very important example here. There were documents found at Mike Pence's property that he took from his time as vice president with Trump. Now, Pence is a lot of things. I think he's a dumb shit. In many capacities. I don't think he's a very intelligent person. But I also don't think he would knowingly or even try to do something wrong.
Right.
I don't, he still calls his wife mother. I am your mother. You listen to me. They should have put Karen Pence in that video. But anyway. He had documents in his possession that were considered classified. He didn't have any interaction with someone like Stormy Daniels, which I remember DeSantis insinuating something like, well, I don't talk to porn stars, so I don't have this issue, faggot. Okay. Yeah. Let's see what they say down in Miami about DeSantis. Many people are saying, many fine people, and they're looking into it very strongly. Okay. Pence has never talked to a woman who's not his wife, basically, without supervision. He definitely does not take any tax deductions for anything. The one time that an election issue was raised, he did not exert the full extent of his constitutional duty and said, I won't even question the states and read it, and still got snagged on a classified documents thing. So, okay, do play by all the rules, and yet you will still be punished. So I understand you're making the point of like, well, why not, be as above suspicion as possible? Why not do? Okay, you do all that, and they still get you for jaywalking in your own property. Big deal.
But I'd rather get caught for jaywalking than something else.
Well,
so
but that's what it comes down to.
My point is, if
you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Again, they haven't Trump's side has not issued any type of response or anything to these indictments
Nor should they until they finally get to court.
But the point being, we don't know his side of the story. So obviously, you take this with a semi-grain of salt. But if what the indictment said is true, and if Trump showed certain documents that he knew, because he verbalized, I know these are classified, but I'm going to show you anyway, that takes a level of, I think I'm untouchable, that anyone on our side should never even dream about taking.
Right. Okay. Here's what Trump says now. This is a truth. He truthed. When the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, they wouldn't let my lawyers or representatives anywhere near them. Now, as an aside, before I continue what he said,
right, we remember that, yeah.
But people would say, well, he didn't want them to interfere. But if you're going through an FBI raid, you're allowed your legal representation to be. Okay.
Yes. Which, by the way, David French said he was within his right to ask to be present. Yes.
And there were four, and apparently there were a main FBI person in Washington said the FBI broke 4 levels of protocol with this situation, like not allowing the attorneys there. Like was talking to the House Republicans, basically saying there were 4 levels of protocol they were supposed to follow that they did not follow.
Right, which they could use in their in their
violations
stead
of rights and things like that.
Get some of these counts dismissed, maybe.
Yeah. So Trump says, when the FBI raided Mar-a-Lago, they wouldn't let my lawyers or representatives anywhere near them. They wouldn't let us what they took. Obviously, let us see what they took. Knowing them, and based on past performance, they probably later stuffed in other documents. My lawyers had to wait outside on a very hot day. The FBI took my medical records, birth certificate, and passports, and just about anything else they were able to get their hands on. What a group. They didn't do this to crooked Joe Biden or Hillary. And that's, I think, an important thing here, too. Can you imagine how embarrassing it is if the FBI gets this stuff knocked down on procedural charges? The whole Department of Justice would be invalidated at that point.
And to follow my point is what I'm saying. If you're an FBI agent and you know that this is, going to be combed through with a fine-tooth comb.
Yes.
I use comb twice, but you know what I mean. Like, if this is going to be scrutinized, every aspect that you do, why would you do something like taking his personal documents like that?
Right. Because they said, they took his passports because you could use those to leave the country. Why would you take an expired passport? No one's going to accept that on the way out of the country. Like, that's fucking stupid.
So any of that, very personal stuff that they either took or looked through that they shouldn't have, that's on them. So
and they had to then return that information.
Right, but that might go against their. So this goes both ways. Like,
what happens
if you know what you're up against and you're stupid enough to make the mistakes?
Right,
you deserve what befalls you.
But here's the thing that I don't understand: what happens if this gets thrown out on procedural grounds? Because there's a very high probability that could happen. What happens to the Mueller, she wrote people and all these people on the left saying we want to see Trump in jail? Because if this falls on procedural grounds, other cases might fall as well. And you might just have a whole,
if this falls over procedural grounds, this becomes, they hate him just as much as we hate Hillary. Because Hillary kind of got away with stuff because of procedural
things. No, that's different. I'm saying this would fall on procedural grounds because of people's actions. With Hillary, it didn't fall on procedural grounds. It was a choice not to investigate or further prosecute. So that was someone in the Attorney General's position, someone in the Director of the FBI's position, someone in a Jack Smith position said, no, we're not going to look into it further. Even though they very easily could have made a case out of it. But with this, it was, yeah, we are going to look into it further. Yeah, we are going to make a case. I'm saying procedural grounds in that were his rights violated.
So it starts to look very much like another witch hunt. It starts to look very much like, you're not in the cool kids group. You're not in the politicians group. So we're going to do everything we can to nail you to the wall. I understand all of that, and I sympathize with all of that.
Because with any of this, it's not like you have him on the phone. There's this very Bond villain style thing of you don't have him on the phone to some leader of another country saying, look what I got. I found a picture of a U.S. nuclear weapon with the sizes and everything like that. No.
But again, this is just solidifying my point of, if you know, first of all, you're conservative, you're a Republican, you're whatever, you're on the hated team. On top of that, the Republicans are going to help out because you're not a politician. You're not in the in crowd. You didn't go to a certain Ivy League school or whatever. Both of those things going against you, you should do everything in your power to be as perfect as possible. I realize it's not possible to be perfect. I try my best. But my point being, Trump should be smarter and know better than to do any of the stuff that he allegedly did. Like, there should have been no room for error that they could have, like, squeezed this in.
That's what you would think, but then I get back to the Pence standard. He did everything right.
But again, he's also even though he's on the right, he's part of that group of, but we're going to kind of let it slide because he's a politician.
But maybe
he's one
not.
Of ours.
Yes, now he's running for president on this, like, I hate Trump platform, which I think is stupid. But
it wouldn't surprise me if they get a positive result from this that the Department of Justice wants, they don't go after him. Why not? They don't want him to lead.
But they know he has no shot in hell of winning the nomination.
Well, yeah,
so
but everyone except
they wouldn't
for him
waste.
knows that
They
for
wouldn't
some
waste
reason.
the time and money.
But that's where it comes down to. It's like, again, you play by every rules. You take as few deductions as possible. You do everything, and yet still, they manage to find a way that they can try to come after you. You know, if Trump hid his documents in a rumpus room, no one would have found them because there's no rumpus rooms left.
I laughed because we said we were going to keep this short because there wasn't a lot to talk about.
But we managed to make it a big deal.
We have bloviated beyond bloviated.
I don't know about bloviating.
We have talked as much as anyone would want to listen to. But we had some good points. And we had some good debate because, you know.
Yell at me.
Who's yelling? But I think I'm right and you're wrong, so go fuck yourselves.
Put that in your rumpus room and shove it.